We have the presenters for today, and those presenters are Cassandra Carter, OJJDP, Task Lead, Performance Management Team, Rebecca Stevens and Muniba Azam, Training and Technical Assistance and Helpdesk Specialists, and Katie McCarthy, Communications. She's also producing the session today. Carla could not be here today, but she would like for me to pass along how happy she is that you're here. And I wanted to remind you that this training has been created to create a space to talk about the updated performance measures, where analysts present them to you and talk about the upcoming reporting cycle and associated best practices. So, as Carla would say, sit back, relax, and enjoy the presentation. We'll start the recording now if it hasn't already been started. Thank you, Katie. Welcome to the Community-Based Violence Prevention, Gang and Youth Violence Prevention session. We're here to talk about the data, collecting it, tracking it, and reporting on it. Understanding and reporting useful and accurate data is a critical component in the solicitation and award process, and can help both yourself and your program manager gain key insights on many decision-making factors, whether those factors be time, resources, or funding. OJJDP uses performance data to not only understand the agency story, but also to demonstrate outcome-based results. In this training session, we will go over the revised performance measures, discussing the collecting and sharing of information that will help all of us better understand how well the gang prevention program is operating. To make this session as interactive as possible, please use the WebEx chat to respond to any question you see on the screen. Answering the question on your screen here helps us better understand your needs. What is your biggest issue with collecting, tracking, and/or reporting data? Now we're going to give everyone a minute to think about this and type their responses into chat. If you would like to add the name of your organization and your location, that would be great too. Okay, getting data in a timely fashion from partners is from Gina. Tracy, that the PMT doesn't always match the outputs and outcomes of the program. Michelle, there are 4 additional questions asked of us, are not reflective of the performance measures that were requested in the RFP and which we planned for. Craig, getting timely responses from subrecipients providing services. Heidi, a clear definition of exactly what are the performance measures for this grant. Laura, having time with families to complete surveys, assessments when the priority is dealing with more urgent child and family needs. Barbara, figuring out exactly what information is needed or required for our specific program. Mark, PMT is non-specific to location, so filling it out can be confusing when so many outcome measures are not applicable. And Monica, roundtable of the St. Lucie County, Fort Pierre, Florida, getting data from program partners and performance data asked for does not fit with program goals. And Laura, the long-term measures are difficult to get when children and families are no longer active in program services. Thank you, everyone. Those are some very important issues to talk about. Some of those we can address today, and some of those will come as you begin to work with the planning and collecting. Thank you for your responses. The agenda for today includes the following program overview: performance measures, collecting and tracking data and best practices, reporting data and best practices, as well as reporting in a pandemic and what to do with personally identifiable information, and key documents and resources. As we progress through the training, all website links mentioned during the training will be presented to you in chat and also provided to you in your copy of the presentation to be emailed to you later this week. The objectives for today include understanding what the performance measure updates are for your program, understanding the need for a data collection plan for the data you collect between July 2021 and December 2021, and then report on January 2022. This is also known as the who did what. Further, you will gain understanding of the performance measure reporting due dates. This is also known as the when did they do that. And you are required to submit performance reports twice a year, July 30th and January 30th. Understanding where to find supporting resources is important in that effort. Now, in the showcase sessions we conducted last April, we talked about the newly updated performance measures as outlined in your solicitation or award and located at the OJJDP.ojp.gov website. This training is being presented to you to emphasize the fact that now is the time to start planning on and collecting and tracking data for the July through December 2021 reporting cycle, with the goal of reporting January 2022 using these new measures. To begin, in the Special Victims and Violent Offenders Division, we have several programs and programs with subprograms. The program we are talking about today is the Community-Based Violence Prevention, Gang and Youth Violence Prevention Program as part of the SVVO. As way of background, the program funds evidence-based intervention strategies to use the OJJDP Comprehensive Gang Model, which consists of evidence-based framework for the coordination of multiple strategies to address serious, violent, and entrenched youth street gang problems. The model combines prevention, intervention, and suppression tactics to address the root causes of criminal gang activity within a community. Approximately 8% of all youth have joined a gang by their 20s. Evidence-based framework for the coordination of multiple strategies to address serious, violent, and entrenched youth street gangs includes two goals associated with the gang prevention program. These are to prevent youth from becoming involved in gang activity and gang-related issues, and two, to reduce victimization caused by youth, gun, and gang activity. This program has two categories for FY20 under the Comprehensive Anti-Gang Programs for Youth. Category 1 is intervention, and Category 2 is suppression. Under Category 1, we see a support for intervention strategies that can dissuade youth from joining gangs and help them discontinue their involvement in gangs through the use of 1, community mobilization, 2, opportunities provision, and 3, social intervention. Category 2 supports focused deterrence and suppression strategies aimed at preventing and reducing youth gang violence. This program contains the OJJDP Program Manager for Gang and Youth Violence Prevention, Senior Program Specialists, Scott Pestridge, who is your main POC, 2 program supervisors, Associate Administrator James Ontal and Deputy Associate Administrator Jacqueline O'Reilly, and training and technical assistance as provided by the National Gang Center. Let's remind ourselves of the performance measures process and then discuss the newly updated performance measures found in the CBVP Gang Prevention Program. As you review these performance measures with Kathy, you may recognize many of them, since not all of them were changed in the updated process. Kathy, I'll pass the microphone to you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. I do want to acknowledge Carla Prelo, who was able to join us, the Performance Measure Coordinator, and want to acknowledge and thank her for her continued guidance in supporting the updates. So now let's go over the framework for the updates. The framework or logic model was used to write the performance measures include 4 main components. Those are inputs, activities, outputs, and outcomes. Inputs are program resources such as grant funding and award administration. Activities are actions that convert inputs to outputs. They can be anything from identifying key personnel with access to crime and school abuse data to establishing information sharing agreements, MOUs, and other agreements. Outputs are products or services that are a result of the activities from your grants. These can be things like trainings, meetings, and these outcome measures will speak to the longer-term program goals. The newly updated performance measures will require changes in the way that you collect data, and that is why we're here today, to ensure that you understand that you will be reporting on the newly updated performance measures during the July through December 2001 reporting cycle come January 30th, 2022, and that we want to make sure that you have a plan in place to do so. The performance measures document the progress that you've made in accomplishing your program's goals and objectives by collecting data on your activities and services. Remember, regular reporting on performance measures outcome establishes your program's growth. You can find your program's performance measures for gangs on the online location or your community-based violence programs if you click on the link, which you'll be receiving after today's training. This will all aid you in setting up your program to collect the measures. OJJDP identified and organized the newly updated performance measures to include 3 different categories. The categories include overall measures, multi-program measures, and program-specific measures. In the overall measures category, grantees will be asked the same overall question in every program. This will allow our analysts to aggregate data across multiple programs and assist with responding to congressional data and other ad hoc data requests. Multi-program measures impact 3 different types of populations with the same type of populations. For example, children involved in the child welfare system, tribal youth. So in some cases, those that have similar service delivery models, such as mental health services or prevention services, are now going to collect similar data. The third category are those with shared outcomes. Youth provided with defense counsel may be an example of that. So for this program, we're going to really go over the program-specific measures that align with the specific population that was funded by your activity and desired results. These measures help us to reflect the unique outputs and outcomes for each specific program and distinguishes them from other programs. Program-specific measures also help to track the progress of individual programs over time. So now I'm going to review the overall measure, one example, and one example of a multi-program measure. The number of individuals served by population performance measure captures the total number of individuals served and is broken down by the number of children, youth, young adults, parents, legal guardian, and additional family members. Since OJJDP funding is targeted to serve children and youth, the various categories of individuals served help OJJDP to isolate the true number of children served. And we do understand that not all of our programs serve youth. This measure will then capture the number of individuals who were carried over and the number who were new admissions during the reporting cycle to avoid duplication. Now, on to a multi-measure program measure. Percent of eligible individuals served by trauma-informed services is an example of one of our multi-program performance measures. This multi-program measure will allow you to provide the number of individuals served who receive trauma-informed services. This includes targeted services to assist the victims of trauma, to promote their safety, security, or recover to help them participate in the justice system or to meet other needs. So when you think about the category, we do include a definition so that there's a shared understanding across different programs that receive OJJDP funding. This is just a quick snapshot of all of the outcome program-specific measures, meaning that you're all here today because you're funded to go through and provide information about this program. So the first program-specific measure that I'm going to share with you is the percent change in gang membership. In order to capture this, you will provide a count of the number of individuals identified as a gang member at the beginning of the award cycle. Most award cycles are about 3 years. You will then go on to have the number of individuals identified as a gang member during the activity period. In your planning, you will need to find a way to capture that particular outcome. The next program-specific measure is the percent change in the association of individuals with gang membership. So to capture this outcome, you will provide a count of number of individuals identified as associates of gang member at the beginning of an award cycle, and you will also need to provide the number of individuals identified as associates of gang member. This may be obtained by directly asking youth visual observations, gang affiliation, gang-like behavior that is associated with gang behavior in your community. The next outcome is the percent of eligible individuals adjudicated for a gang-related offense. For this measure, you will be providing a count of the number of individuals adjudicated for a first-time gang-related offense and the number of individuals adjudicated for a subsequent gang-related offense. And of course, the percentage will be calculated by dividing 1/2, the number of individuals adjudicated for the first time over those who have a subsequent offense. And then moving on to the percent change in the community-based violence incidences. To capture this change in community-based offenses, you will provide a count of the number of community-based violence incidents at the beginning of the award cycle. To capture this information, you may use data that you are provided in your grant application. You may find other organizations in your community that are responsible for identifying and tracking this information. And then under that, you will also need to report the number of community-based violent incidences during the activity period. In order to capture the change in school-based violence incidences, you will provide a count of the number of eligible individuals at school. And this data can be obtained from school records, planning offices, because it's important that you also track the number of eligible individuals who experience a violent victimization at schools, working with various stakeholders to obtain this information and understanding your program's impact. And we have one more program-specific measure, which is the percent of eligible individuals who reduce gang-related behavior. This is the last outcome metric that you will need to report to provide a count of individuals who've received services to reduce gang-related behavior through your grant funds, as well as those who've showed a reduction in gang-related behavior. Number of individuals who reduce gang-related behaviors are also important to understand that. So now that you've been able to understand more about your programs, the way that they were organized, and what we're actually looking for, we're going to just do a quick check for understanding. So I'm going to hand it back over to Rebecca to check for some understanding.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. We have a short scenario for you. Brenda Sokup, a new gangs prevention grantee, has just received the newly updated performance measures, attended this learning event, and is sitting at her desk wondering how to get started. What would you recommend Ms. Sokup do to prepare for data collection, which is July to December 2021, and reporting in January 2022? Please feel free to answer in chat. And we'll give everyone a moment to do that. Okay, Barbara, set up a data gathering tool that captures the information she will need to report. Add these fields to existing client case management software for individual outcomes. Thank you, Michelle. Barbara, have data sharing agreements in place. Laura, review materials from OJJDP, meet with relevant project team to review, and revise existing data gathering tools to align with requirements. Roderick, create a data collection plan, sources, contact persons, deadlines to collect. Thank you, good. Tracy, first look at proposed program, determine specific outputs and outcomes, then determine the measure that can track these outputs and outcomes. Thank you, Tracy. Excellent, thank you guys. From Michelle, engage with law enforcement and local school districts to create a plan to collect and report these data. And from Daryl, review existing data collection tools and add new questions and metrics that are missing. Good, good. So many of you are noting to make sure that you have a copy of the Gang Prevention Program performance measures, definitions, and questions to use and reference during planning. That's great. You're also noting to familiarize yourselves with the set of performance measure, definition, and questions more closely. And as mentioned previously, you notice that some of the performance measures are not entirely new. Some have been adapted or expanded upon, and you will probably follow a similar process to collect data on these measures then. Another best practice is to determine who is responsible for capturing and tracking this data and who is responsible for reporting the data in January 2022. Now, we understand that each program has a unique or slightly different approach to data collection and reporting, and so determining what works best for you and your program is best. And that's what we're seeing in the responses. So thank you, everyone, and make it as simple as possible. Thank you, Barbara. Moving on, we will now review several best practices while collecting and tracking data. Creating a data collection plan requires a good deal of pre-planning and preparation. When creating a data collection plan, best practices often include locating the performance measure for your program, identifying each question that needs to be answered, creating a plan to identify when and how you will collect that data. For example, what type of tool or instrument will you use to collect the data needed to answer the questions? And has the tool been validated or used before? And who will collect the data? There are several best practices you can implement when collecting data for the upcoming reporting cycle. You want to be proactive in your approach. Designate staff for the coordination of the performance measure data collection process. Review the progress reporting questionnaire before entering data. Ensure that designated staff participate in trainings. And lastly, pay attention to communication from JustGrants. And if applicable, review, edit, and validate data with sub-grantees before reporting. Just briefly, I wanted to mention the grantee and sub-grantee relationship, noting that this relationship adds a unique dimension to data collection, reporting, and analysis. The key item to remember here is that grantees must monitor sub-grantees to include reviewing all reports for reasonableness and accuracy. You are required to enter data on all performance measures that relate to activities described in your approved OJJDP grant application and carried out with OJJDP funding. As a grantee, you should plan to collect data on behalf of all of your subrecipients. Some things to think about as you plan to collect and track data include timelines and resources. After all, this can be a lengthy data collection process, as noted in your solicitation. Some of the questions that you may want to consider while planning include duration of data collection and document version control. Does your plan include a beginning, a middle, and an ending date? How will you manage documents over that time period? Will you track them using an Excel spreadsheet, for example? Regarding location and access, how long will you store the data? Who will have access to it? And if it is stored on a shared drive, who is given permissions? Lastly, how will changes be communicated? How will the data be validated and edited if applicable? We will now review several best practices during reporting. In January 2022 reporting cycle, you will be reporting on the newly revised performance measures and narrative questions. Narrative questions provide you with the opportunity to address these topics. For example, what do the numbers you report in your performance measures actually mean on the ground? How does your work impact your community? You want to use the narrative to walk the reader from the numeric outputs to the tangible outcomes. And you want to use specific and detailed concrete examples to illustrate your point. Other things to think about in your narrative include providing evidence to support your conclusions. What has funding allowed you to do that you could not do prior to receiving funding? And can include words like COVID-19 and pandemic when explaining COVID-19 adjustments to the program. Let's discuss best practices for reporting. Common issues arise since you are required to respond to every question. When reporting zeros, if a measure does not apply, you can enter a 0 value and then add an explanation by selecting the comments field. A brief description, such as, "We are still in our planning period," or "There was no activity during the reporting cycle," are acceptable responses. Avoiding duplications in count can be very challenging, as you know. Having more than one person review the data, for example, a program manager at a site visit, can help ensure duplicate data does not exist in your reporting. And as you know, reporting is award-based. Another best practice when trying not to duplicate data is spending down funds and creating a final report of activities you performed for the oldest award first before beginning to enter data and reporting on another award if you have multiple awards. You want to contact JustGrants with any concerns related to the error messages found in JustGrants. You can save your data and resume data entry at a later point in time in JustGrants. And for more information on these facts and others, please visit the YouTube video that's posted on the screen. And also, you may want to contact the PMT Helpdesk for any questions related to progress reporting or reporting on the newly updated performance measures. You are encouraged to reach out to your program manager with questions or concerns. Now, as we just mentioned, some grantees may receive funding from other awards. Just briefly, a service should be reported under one program or the other. The same service cannot be reported under multiple programs. If you have difficulty tracking services for each specific award, you want to work with OJJDP program managers to identify an appropriate method for prorating all services to allocate numbers to each award. This session only focuses on January 2022 reporting. For this July 2021, all discretionary awards will start collecting data on the updated performance measures. You will be reporting on the activities that occurred between July and December 2021 and January 2022. Discretionary award reporting deadlines, as you know, are July 30th for the reporting period January 1st through June 30th, and January 30th for the reporting period July 1st through December 31st. Collecting and tracking data that contains personally identifiable information, also referred to as PII, should be done with considerations toward the Privacy Act of 1974. Broadly stated, the purpose of the Privacy Act is to balance the government's need to maintain information about individuals with the rights of individuals to be protected against unwarranted invasions of their privacy stemming from federal agencies' collection, maintenance, use, and disclosure of personal information. So, in accordance with this act, you want to collect only the data you need. If you are using printed materials, keep sensitive PII in locked desk drawers, file cabinets, or a similar locked enclosure. And when using sensitive PII, keep it in an area where access is controlled and limited to persons with an official need to know. Reporting in a pandemic. You should complete progress reporting to the best of your ability and submit it before the deadline. Every progress report form includes a narrative field or multiple narrative fields where you can provide additional information about the data. Use that space to explain any incomplete or missing data. You're encouraged to use the narrative field that asks for additional information about the effectiveness to describe COVID-19 related adjustments to programming and other activities not captured elsewhere on the form. If you cannot provide accurate counts for numerical progress report fields because project partners do not have access to files for example, you should leave those fields blank rather than providing estimates. As a best practice, you want to communicate setbacks and successes through the use of progress reports as well as with your program specialist. So how do you report on activities now that they've been shifted to online remote platforms and when you've not been collecting detailed data on victims served like you did in face-to-face sessions? The short answer is to do the best you can and make very good use of those narrative fields. I'd like to next pass the microphone to Muniba, who will discuss various resources at your disposal. Muniba?
Thank you, Rebecca. Now we will briefly go over some resources and where you can find additional information. The PMT Help Desk is available to help you with any questions you may have about responding to the progress reporting questions or performance measures. You can contact them by calling the number on the screen or emailing OJJDP pmt@ojp.usdoj.gov. For a faster response, we recommend emailing the Help Desk. The OJJDP PMT Help Desk contact information is available on the screen. Our office hours are Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, except for U.S. federal holidays. The PMT Help Desk returns emails and phone calls within 24 hours, so please don't hesitate to leave a voicemail or email even after business hours. If you have questions about the JustGrants system, for example, accessing the system, please call the number on the screen between the hours of 5 a.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and Saturday, Sunday, and federal holidays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. If you experience any issues with JustGrants, we highly encourage you to reach out to JustGrants support. JustGrants information, such as instructions on locating, completing, and submitting performance reports in JustGrants, can be found on the OJJDP.ojp.gov website or by viewing the video available on the screen. You can also log into JustGrants at justgrants.usdoj.gov. Back to you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Muniba. Let's take a moment to reflect on what was just presented. First, we discussed each of the program-specific gang prevention performance measures, noting specific instances where data would need to be collected and the type of data needed. Next, we learned about the best practices for planning, collecting, tracking, and reporting on data for the July through December 2021 reporting cycle. So what's next? Next steps include the opportunity we currently have to collect data that will inform changes down the road. For our part, those changes come in the form of edited performance measures. You will be receiving a fillable feedback form that you are requested to complete and return to the PMT Help Desk once you have familiarized yourself with the newly updated performance measures. There is one form per performance measure with plenty of room for narrative. Providing us with the feedback on the newly revised performance measures gives us the information we need to fully understand your needs or those challenges you face implementing that measure. Thus, collecting your feedback now on the newly revised performance measures informs the refresh cycle 1 year after the 1-year pilot has occurred, and we have identified those changes or updates that need to occur. But for now, no planned changes to the performance measures are being considered, and we would request that you do not make any changes to any of the documents posted online or provided in training sessions. And with that, this concludes today's session.